The toy piggy bank sits on my kitchen table, mocking me every morning. $3 million of prime Iowa farmland, 4 generations of Callahan family heritage, reduced to this pink ceramic joke. I never thought my stepson Bobby would have the nerve. "Thanks for the inheritance, old man," the note said. "Sold it all. Figured this was more your style." 30 years I spent raising that boy after his daddy died, teaching him everything I knew about hog farming. Brought him into the family business, made him my partner, my heir. I even put his name on the deed when my heart attack scared me into getting my affairs in order. 2 months later, he had liquidated everything while I was recovering in the hospital. The land, the breeding stock, the equipment, all gone before I even got home. You think you know someone. You think blood is thicker than water? Let me tell you how my own flesh and blood, well, step flesh and blood, took everything I built and left me with nothing but this cheap toy and a mountain of regrets. I met Bobby's mother, Elaine, at the Buchanan County Fair in '89. She was working the corn dog stand, and I was there showing my prize Yorkshire boar. I was 32, already established with the farm I'd inherited from my daddy, who got it from his daddy before him. Callahan Hog Farm was a respected name in eastern Iowa. Elaine had Bobby, just 7 years old then, and was struggling after her husband took off for California with some waitress from the truck stop. We married 6 months later. Bobby was a quiet kid, always watching, always listening. I tried to be a good father to him. Took him fishing on the Cedar River, taught him to drive a tractor by age 10, let him name the piglets in the spring. "This is your legacy too, son," I'd tell him. "Someday all this will be yours." I wanted him to understand the value of what we had, not just the money, but the respect in the community, the tradition. My own daddy had been hard on me. Leonard Callahan believed in the school of hard knocks. I still remember the time he made me shovel out the entire farrowing barn by myself when I was 14 because I'd snuck out to a party. 20 hours of work in the July heat, neighbors driving by seeing the Callahan boy being taught his lesson. "You don't appreciate what you have, Jack," he'd said. "Maybe this'll help you understand the value of responsibility." I promised myself I'd never humiliate Bobby that way. But there were times. Like when Bobby was 16 and crashed my truck into the Petersons' fence after taking it without permission. I made him work it off, repairing the fence himself after school for 2 weeks while the whole town drove by. Or when he got caught stealing cigarettes from the Come and Go, and I made him apologize to Old Man Higgins in front of all the morning coffee regulars. Tough love, everyone called it. That's what we do in farm country. We build character. When Bobby turned 21, I took him to the bank and added his name to the farm account. Junior partner, I called him. By then, we'd expanded from just breeding stock to a full operation with 2,000 hogs and contracts with Smithfield. The original 80 acres had grown to 240, prime Iowa farmland worth a fortune, especially with the buildings and equipment. We were clearing nearly $500,000 a year in good times. For his 30th birthday, I had a sign made, Callahan and Son Hog Farm. I remember how he just stared at it when I unveiled it at his birthday barbecue. All our neighbors were there, the whole community watching. I expected tears, a hug maybe. Instead, he just nodded and said, "Thanks." Looking back, I should have seen it then, something cold in his eyes. When Elaine died of cancer in 2010, something changed between us. Bobby became more distant, spent more time in Cedar Rapids with friends I didn't know. Still, he did his work on the farm, never complained, even during the hard years when pork prices dropped and feed costs soared. We weathered it together, or so I thought. Blood means something, my daddy always said. But Bobby wasn't blood, was he? Maybe that's where I went wrong, thinking that sweat and years and sacrifice could make family out of strangers. Last fall, I had that heart attack while cleaning out the feed bins. Dropped like a stone, they tell me. Bobby found me and called the ambulance. The doctors at University of Iowa hospitals were clear. Triple bypass or prepare for the worst. I was terrified, not of dying exactly, but of leaving things unfinished. Time to get your affairs in order, Dr. Mehta told me. So I called Jim Hawkins, our family attorney since forever, to my hospital room. I made Bobby the majority owner of the farm, transferred it officially while I still could. Just in case, I told him. Bobby sat there in that vinyl hospital chair, nodding solemnly as Jim explained the paperwork. "Don't worry, Jack," Bobby said. "I'll take care of everything." His hand on my shoulder felt reassuring, steady, the way a son's should. The surgery went fine, but recovery was slow. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital, then another month at the Prairie View Rehabilitation Center. Bobby visited every other day at first, bringing updates about the farm. "Sold that troublesome sow," he'd say, or "had to replace the pump in the west barn." Normal farm talk. But by week 3, the visits grew shorter. "Busy season," he'd explain, checking his watch. The updates became vaguer. "Everything's under control," replaced the specifics. I remember Nurse Patty frowning as she watched him leave one day. "That boy's got something on his mind," she said, adjusting my IV. Iowa folks can read people, and Patty had been reading faces for 30 years. Around week 4, Bobby mentioned meeting with some investment guys from Des Moines. Said they had interesting proposals. I tried to ask questions, but he brushed them off. "Don't worry about the business, Jack. Focus on getting better." I called the farm manager, Pete Wilson, who'd worked for us for 15 years. No answer. Called again the next day. Voicemail. Finally got him on the 3rd try. "Jack," Pete said, his voice tight, "I was gonna call you." He paused so long I thought we'd lost the connection. "Bobby let me go last week, gave me a decent severance, but said they were restructuring." "Restructuring what?" I demanded. But Pete wouldn't say more, just wished me well and hung up. That night I called my neighbor Earl Jenkins. Our families had farmed adjoining properties for generations. "Earl, what the hell is going on at my farm?" Earl's long silence told me everything before he spoke a word. "Jack, there've been people out there, city types, measuring, taking soil samples. Bobby said it was just routine bank stuff. But banks don't take soil samples." I tried calling Bobby, straight to voicemail. I left messages, first curious, then concerned, finally angry. Nothing. The next morning, I had Patty help me to the common room computer. Pulled up the county assessor's website. Searched for Callahan Farm. The screen loaded, and my heart nearly gave out again. Owner, River Point Development, LLC. I called Jim Hawkins immediately. "Jim, what the hell is going on with my farm?" Another painful silence. "Jack, I assumed you knew. Bobby came to me 3 weeks ago, had all the paperwork, said you two had discussed a sale due to your health concerns." "Sale? Sale? Jim, that farm is not for sale. It's never been for sale." "I'm sorry, Jack. The transfer was legal. Bobby had full authority as majority owner." I checked myself out of rehab that day, against medical advice. Called a taxi and paid $80 to take me to the farm, my farm, 30 miles away. As we turned onto the gravel road leading to the property, I saw them. Bulldozers, construction trailers, men in hard hats standing around a table with blueprints. And there, in the middle of it all, was Bobby, wearing a suit I'd never seen, talking animatedly to men who looked like they'd never set foot on a farm in their lives. He saw my taxi pull up. For just a second, our eyes met across the yard, where I taught him to throw a baseball, where we'd barbecued every 4th of July, where we'd loaded hogs for market in the pre-dawn hours hundreds of times. He turned away and walked into what had been our farmhouse, closing the door behind him. I hauled myself out of that taxi, still weak from surgery, my chest a mess of healing scars under my flannel shirt. One of the suit-wearing types approached me, all smiles and outstretched hand. "Sir, this is a private property now. I'm afraid you'll need to—" "This is my farm," I growled, pushing past him toward the house. The farmhouse door was locked for the first time in 40 years. I pounded on it with my fist. "Bobby, open this door, boy!" When it finally swung open, Bobby stood there, his face a mask. Behind him, I could see people in the kitchen, my kitchen, sitting around the table where I'd eaten every meal of my life. Blueprints and laptops covered the surface. "Jack," he said flatly, "not Dad, not even Pop, which he'd called me since he was 12. You should be in rehab." "What have you done?" My voice broke, shame and rage making it hard to speak. "What is this?" "Progress," he said, stepping onto the porch and pulling the door closed behind him. "River Point Estates, 200 luxury homes with river views, breaking ground next month." The world tilted under my feet. "You sold my farm for houses?" "I sold my farm," he corrected. "Legally transferred, remember? And yes, for houses, at $500,000 each. Do the math, Jack. This land has been in my family for—" "Your family," he cut in, "not mine. You never let me forget that, did you? Callahan tradition. Callahan legacy. Well, I made my own legacy." The construction workers had stopped to watch. The men from the kitchen were filing out onto the porch now, an audience for my humiliation. "Bobby, this isn't about names. This is about the promises we made, the life we built." "The life you built," he said. "The life I was trapped in, shoveling pig shit since I was 8 years old, smelling like death every day at school, getting passed over by girls because who wants to date the boy who reeks of hog farm? While you got to be the big man in town, the successful farmer, the pillar of the community." Each word hit like a physical blow. Had it been like that for him all these years? "I gave you everything," I said, "made you my partner, my son." "Partner?" he laughed, a harsh sound. "I was your unpaid labor. And son? That was just your way of making sure I stayed to take over when you couldn't do it anymore. Insurance policy, not family." The suits were watching with embarrassed fascination, this real-life family drama playing out before them. One cleared his throat. "Mr. Callahan, perhaps we should reschedule." "No," Bobby said sharply. "We're closing today as planned." He turned back to me. "Go back to rehab, Jack, or don't. It doesn't matter. It's done." Something in me snapped then. Years of restraint, of playing the patient father, the community role model, gone in an instant. "You ungrateful little snake," I hissed. "You think I didn't know your mother was pregnant by another man when I married her? You think I didn't hear the whispers? But I raised you anyway, gave you my name, my life." Bobby went pale. The onlookers froze. "What are you talking about?" Bobby's voice had changed, uncertain now. "Ask your mother." "Oh, wait, you can't." "But everyone in this county knows. Why do you think I pushed you so hard? To prove them wrong, to make you worthy of being called my son, even if you weren't." It wasn't entirely true. Elaine had been pregnant when we met, yes. But the other part, the rumors, the paternity, that was my wounded pride talking. A desperate shot to hurt him as deeply as he'd hurt me. And it landed. I saw it in his eyes, the sudden doubt, the foundation of his identity cracking. "You're lying," he whispered.
"Check your birth certificate," I said, the venom still flowing. "Compare the dates. Do the math, as you put it." I turned to go, legs barely holding me up. But at the steps, I paused and looked back at the strangers who were buying my legacy. "You know what you're building on? Hog waste lagoons. 60 years of pig shit under that soil. Good luck with your luxury homes." And with that, I walked away from everything I'd ever built, leaving my not son standing on the porch of a house that wasn't ours anymore. The next few weeks passed in a blur. I checked into the Riverside Motel on the edge of town, a place usually rented by the hour or to truckers passing through. My savings would cover a few months there, but after that, I didn't know. Word spread through the county like wildfire. Jack Callahan thrown off his own land by his stepson. Some folks stopped by with casseroles or offers of spare rooms. Others avoided eye contact at Casey's General Store. In small-town Iowa, public humiliation is its own special hell. Earl Jenkins came by 3 days after the confrontation, hat literally in hand. "Bobby's looking for you," he said, perched awkwardly on the edge of my motel bed. "Let him look," I muttered. "Jack," Earl said, his farmer's hands twisting his John Deere cap. "What you said about him not being yours. People are talking." Of course they were. Small towns run on gossip like tractors run on diesel. "Is it true?" Earl asked. I stared at the water stain on the ceiling. "Does it matter now?" A week later, Pastor Mike from First Lutheran tracked me down. "Bobby came to see me," he said, after some small talk. "He's troubled by what you said. Join the club." "He found his birth certificate," Pastor Mike continued. "The dates, well, they don't match what you implied." A small, mean part of me was disappointed. The lie hadn't stuck. "He also sold the development deal." That got my attention. "What?" "Backed out."
Paid some penalty, but he stopped it. The farm's still there. Something shifted inside me, a tiny flame of hope, quickly extinguished. So he'll just sell it to someone else. What's the difference? Pastor Mike shook his head. "He's not selling. That's why I'm here. He wants to meet, neutral ground." I agreed to see Bobby at the church the next day. When I arrived, he was sitting alone in a pew, staring at the stained glass. He looked thinner, older somehow. "Why'd you lie about being my father?" he asked without preamble. "Why'd you sell my farm?" I countered. We sat in silence for a long minute. "I never felt like it was mine," he finally said. "Not really. It was always the Callahan farm. I was just the help." "That's not true, Bobby. Isn't it? When people talked about the farm, it was always Jack Callahan's place. Even after that sign, Callahan and Son, it was still your operation in everyone's eyes, including yours." I wanted to argue, but memories flashed through my mind. Introducing Bobby as my stepson well into his 20s, correcting the bank manager who called him Mr. Callahan, keeping the checkbook even after making him partner. "I wanted to be something other than a pig farmer," he said quietly. "Since I was a kid, wanted to build things, design things. I even applied to architecture school once. This was news to me." "When?" "After Mom died. Got accepted too, but you had that bad year with the disease outbreak. Couldn't leave." Another silence. "So, when those developers came sniffing around last year, talking about a planned community, showing me designs, it felt like a sign." He looked at me directly. "I was going to tell you after your surgery. Had it all planned. You'd retire comfortably. I'd work with the development team. We'd both get what we wanted. What I wanted was for the farm to stay in the family," I said. "But I'm not family, am I? Not really. Not a Callahan by blood." The hurt in his voice was so raw it made my chest ache worse than my surgical scars. "Bobby," I said slowly, "I've been a fool in more ways than I can count. But one thing I was never wrong about was choosing you as my son, blood or no blood." 2 days later, Bobby showed up at my motel room with a folder of papers. Legal documents transferring the farm back to both our names, joint ownership. And something else, plans for a new venture. Callahan Heritage Farms, he called it, part working farm, part agricultural education center. Using 10 acres for the traditional operation, developing another 50 for tours, classes, and a farm-to-table restaurant. People want to connect with where their food comes from, he explained, excitement making him look like the boy who used to name piglets. City folks will pay good money for the experience, and we keep the core of the farm intact. It was a compromise. Not the full operation I'd spent my life building, but not condos either. A new legacy, combining my traditions with his vision. We spent 6 months rebuilding the farm and our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were arguments, setbacks, days when the weight of betrayal still hung heavy between us. But by spring planting, we had the education center framed up and a new, smaller herd of heritage breed hogs established. The day we opened for our first school tour, Bobby brought me a gift wrapped in newspaper. The ceramic piggy bank. To remind us, he said, of what we almost lost. I keep it on my desk now, in the office we share. Some days I still look at it and feel a phantom pain from that betrayal. But most days it reminds me that legacy isn't just what we leave behind, it's what we build together. That piggy bank taught me the hardest lesson of my life. It wasn't about the money or even the land. It was about seeing my son as his own man, not just an extension of my dreams. These days, Callahan Heritage Farms hosts thousands of visitors yearly. Bobby runs the educational programs, while I handle the traditional farming operations, teaching a new generation about sustainable agriculture. We're different men with different visions, but we found common ground in preserving something meaningful while allowing it to evolve. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of how you think things should be and embracing what they could become. If you've ever had to rebuild a relationship you thought was broken beyond repair, or found yourself choosing between tradition and change, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life family stories and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video about rural American family businesses in transition.